Hello, my amazing artists. We are working today, after reading the book Ish, on making Ish flowers. This is going to be not only a drawing, but also a collage of sorts where we get to use glue as well as using some chalk pastel at the end. Write your name on the back of your paper in a corner. Very important in case you mess up, so you can turn it over. We want to start with the side that doesn't have our name. I'm using a Sharpie so you can see it, but you guys are going to use a pencil. The pencil is perfect and you don't need to trace it, so once you're done drawing, all we have to do is go over it with glue. Because we are going to go over our flowers, our ish flowers, you are going to want to make your lines large and your flower petals big so that your glue lines don't all run together at the end. So try to make it as big as mine, and we're going to fill up the whole page and let our flower fall off the edges. Teachers, if you want to pull up some pictures of flowers, that's always super helpful to show the students some different types of flowers, especially photographed really close so that the frame of the flower and the edges of the flower fall out of the picture. I'm going to start with my center in the middle. You can put your center wherever you want on the paper. Make sure it's on the paper though. It could be in the corner and the rest is filled with flower petals. That's totally fine. Let's actually talk about different types of flower petals. I typically draw similar ones most of the time. So we could do something like a daisy. But a daisy doesn't have lots of layers of flower petals. It's just all the way around fairly simply. So if I were to do this on my paper, I would need to make sure it's big enough that if this box were the edges of my paper, that it would fit and be that big. It could be very interesting. You could even add some detail lines when you're making it super large. You could draw a sunflower, which we have done before, and their petals kind of look similar to this. And if you do a sunflower, they have lots of different layers of petals. I'm not going to do the whole thing here just to kind of speed this process up. But you could add several layers of petals for a sunflower and just kind of pile them on top of each other. The good thing about you guys using pencil is if you mess up, you can erase. So if this were my paper, I could zoom in like this and make this my whole page filled up with wonderful sunflower petals. You could make your petals wide and kind of flat on the top. You can make them rounded and wide on the top. If this is the center of your flower, it could be like that. You can always add in some extra lines for interest if you'd like. We're going to go ahead and get started on this. Watch, and then you can try your own ideas. I'm going to draw and move my paper at the same time. That way my flower petals are consistent. I'm really drawing pretty big here. My flower petals are almost as long as my finger. And I'm just going to keep stacking long flower petals on top of each other. I'm making sure that they're big because I have to go over this with glue. And if I don't make them big enough and they're too small and tiny, then I will end up having a glue puddle. Going to keep going until I'm at the edges of my paper and I feel like I'm satisfied with my drawing here. I'm going to let this one just kind of fall off the page right there. I think that's a great composition. I'm almost the edge of the paper here and here. I'm touching it down here and I fell off at the top. I'm happy with that. So once you're happy with it, you can stop. You may check with the teacher to make sure that there's nothing else maybe they think you should add, or if there's anything that may be a little too small. I'm going to go ahead and open my glue bottle. Make sure you twist it. Pick off any of the glue boogers. Mine just kind of came out when I opened it. Make sure it can breathe, and then you want to turn it over. Sometimes you gotta wait for the glue to get to the other side. The next step, and kind of the harder process, just waiting on my glue here, is to trace very, very carefully all of those lines so that you have nothing but glue lines over top of your pencil. So none of your pencil lines aren't covered. So if you're a sketchy artist and some of your lines aren't straight or clean, those will still be visible when we're done, but we'll go over it with chalk pastel in the end. So you can cover it up with the chalk pastel. You can see now that where my two lines right here came together, I kind of ended up with a big glue glob. That's okay right now. It's not that big a deal. You'll also notice that while I'm putting the glue down, I'm holding the bottle up. I'm letting the glue touch the paper and I'm slowly pulling my hand away. That's so that I end up with a nice thick glue line and I don't end up with just kind of a flatter glue line. You do have to go slow, and it's important that you turn your paper as you're working. You can even use both hands. Be a good friend while somebody else is working. Make sure you're not shaking the table or the desks so that they can have a nice neat glue line, because this is hard enough to do. Somebody's erasing next to you and the whole table's shaking. It makes it very difficult. So maybe ask them to stop for a second from their gluing so that you can finish what you need to do, and then they can go back to gluing again. Because typically everybody works at a little bit of a different pace with this project. Oops, I didn't quite stay on my lane there. Okay, there you have it. Step one is finished. Now you're going to very carefully pick up your paper, hold it, make sure you have your fingers in a place they're not going to get gluey, carefully walk it over to the drying rack, and they will be dry by next week. And at that point, we will add our chalk pastel to the top. Now, if for some reason your line wasn't thick enough and you needed to go over it, and I don't have it as thick as I do here, what I want you to do is go ahead and go over that again. Hopefully you can see this pretty well and you can see how thick those glue lines are. That's really important because each petal is going to be shaded in separately. So when we do the chalk pastel, it'll be very, very interesting flower when we're finished. I hope you had fun and look forward to seeing you next time when we do our chalk pastel.